Greetings from Terry here, D-Lab Electronics. This is an update video on that Premier 110 amplifier that I picked up at the Farmington Hills Antique Radio Swap Meet. So I've done a lot of work since then on the unit. I've actually documented the schematic because everybody says it's not available, and you're right. I looked, it's not. So I figured, okay, I'll go ahead and document it. So in this video, I'm going to install a new filter capacitor, and then we're going to see if we can just get a signal through the amp. Then I'm going to show you the original documentation, and then I'll let you know what I'm up to next. Here's that beautiful Premier 110 amp. So the first thing I plan to do is install this new filter capacitor, because we know the old one is crusty and probably leaky. It's going to damage the amp if I try to run it. So I want to put in the new filter cap. I'm not going to change anything else in the circuit, and we're going to see if we can get a signal to pass through this amplifier. Alright, so easy capacitor removal. Just going to get in here and cut these terminals off. Leave everything in place, so I'll have a roadmap to put in the new filter cap. Alright, she should come off now. Got to be super careful not to break. The insulator was kind of hard to get. Got a few around, but I prefer not to change it. Come on. It's fighting me right on one tab. There she goes. Alright, clean the area. We'll get the new cap installed. So in case you're wondering, the filter cap I'm using is made by CE Distribution. It's a 525 volt cap. Kind of overkill for this purpose, but this price was right, and it's pretty close to the size of the original. The original, however, was a 450 volt cap. So I'm getting ready to hook the leads back up to the new filter cap. Now yes, I'm going to go ahead and reuse these old resistors, but I'm not going to permanently install them. I'm simply going to tack solder them in because I do plan on changing those when I rebuild the amp. But right now I just want to get it back to operational conditions so we can test it. So the new filter cap is wired up. I tack soldered in those two original resistors. This 250 ohm 5 watter is going to go into the rebuild when I complete that, but these two will be leaving. So I'm going to check this over and make sure it's safe, and then we're going to fire it up. Well, here we go. Initial power up with just the new filter cap. I have not checked any of the tubes. Using my leader audio generator, we're going into the mic input. Scope is looking across speaker. Of course, I'm going to bring it up on a variac. Nice and slow, and watch my current. There's 50 volts applied. Now about a kilohertz tone. There is 70 volts. See the old pilot lamp glowing a little bit. There's 100. Pulling about a quarter amp. Bring up my microphone input here. See if we hear anything. See a little bit of flutter on the scope, but I hear nothing. 5Y3 is warm, so we got high voltage. Indicator lights on. Okay, so this tube here, the 6SL7, appears to be, oh yeah, she's on, but she's pretty cold. But see, when I put my hand here, you can hear it. It's a slight hum. So my guess is preamp signal's not making its way through. Oh, look at there. Bet you've got a dead tube. Alright, check the tubes and see if we can get a signal through it. So here's the 6SC7 preamp tube under test. Boom, 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 boom. She's pretty much dead. Alright, popping a new one, and I'm going to go ahead and check the 6SL7 too. Well, I found this beautiful Sylvania 6SC7 in my hoard of tubes. So we're going to put that guy in, check the inverter tube, and go from there. When I got the new tube in, I can hear audio. Hear that? But something is obviously interrupting our signal. So yeah, we had a bad tube. I'm probably going to have to get the scope out, find out where I'm losing that signal. Alright, so before I get the scope out, I thought maybe we should just do the obvious and check power supplies. Okay, so here are the 6V6s. So on pin 3, you'd have your plate voltage, which we do. Pin 4, there's my screens. Good. So up here is the supply for the preamp section. 102 volts. On the other side of those guys, 48. So that appears to be okay. Here's the inverter. The supply comes in here. 300 volts. Goes through the 270K to here. Ooh. Uh-oh. How about this side? Yep. Okay. So it looks like we have two open 27K resistors. I'm sorry, 270K resistors. Let me let this thing discharge. We'll throw the ohm meter across them and verify that's what it is, but I'm sure we just have open resistors feeding the plates of the inverter tube. So sorry guys, it's kind of difficult to have everything framed up, take my measurements, not block you while I have the camera in one hand and meter leads in the other. Alright, we're on the 2 meg range on my B&K meter. Let's check those 270K resistors. Open city. Here's another one. He's open. Now we know the preamp up here was working. Let's see what those are. Oh sure, mess with me. No. Oh, there it is. What the heck? Yeah, I'm just getting terrible connection. A lot of corrosion on the leads. Anyway, we have two open resistors for sure. I'll pop in some new ones and we'll retest. Well, here we go. I tack soldered in some lovely 10% 270K ohm resistoroids. Okay. Bring her up. Still injecting the tone. Still on the microphone input. None of that's changed. Let's see if we can get anything through this amp. Oh. Looky there. Alright. That's a good sign. So for the heck of it, let's take a look at the sine wave on the scope. See how terrible it looks. Doesn't look too bad at all. Let me go. Alright, so I had a slight blunder there. I kicked the tripod. I'm going to bring up the volume. Here's the scope. Not the prettiest looking thing, but it is a sine wave. So that's a good thing. I'm not going to let this run too long because it does have these old waxers and out of tolerance resistors, but you get the point. It's working. This thing is very savable. So let me tell you what the next step is. Alright, so it's pretty evident that pretty much every component in this amplifier is bad. Those resistors are all out of tolerance, they're ready to fail, the caps are obviously bad. So many of you have wrote me and said, hey Terry, there's no documentation on that Premier amp. So what I did is I did a blueprint of this amp. I went through it part by part and I documented this thing as it sits. I believe it's original, okay? So at the end of this video, I'll post a JPEG of the schematic for your reference. So what my plan is now that I have documentation, I'm going to snap some pictures of this chassis and then I'm going to gut it, okay? I'm going to take out every cap and resistor and then I'm going to rebuild it per the print, and then we'll retest. Later on, after I test it, if I discover there are some issues, I may update them, or if somebody wants this thing the way it sits, then I'll leave it the way it is. But at a minimum, it's going to need a grounded power cord, as we all know. And I'm sure that other issues may come up. There may be some out of tolerance pots. There may be some defective tube sockets, okay? So I may have to change some of those. But that will all be in part 2 of the Premier amp restoration video. We'll see you then. Alright, so as promised, here is the schematic of the Premier 110 octal tube amp. I understand they made several versions of this amp. This one is the earliest. So here's the print. If you guys want a copy, just send me an email and I'm glad to send it off to you. In part 2, we're going to completely rebuild this amp and hopefully she'll spring to life and be good for another couple decades. We'll see you then.